After using the Sony a7S III for almost a year now and shooting music videos, promo videos, and ads and short films, and of course YouTube videos on it, we actually recently got the chance to shoot a short film on the Sony FX9. So I thought it would be cool to look at these two cameras and compare them. It's important to note that we only had this camera for 4 days, so I guess it wasn't super in-depth testing. So it's more of like a first impressions of the FX9 versus the Sony a7S III, which I've had for a very long time. I might have missed a couple of features here and there, so if there's something that I missed or that you don't agree on, please leave it down there in the comments. And a special shout out to Panavision Johannesburg, who provided all the gear for the short film. Now, they did not sponsor this video or this channel, but they did provide the gear which the camera was part of. So thanks so much to Panavision Johannesburg. Now let's get into it. So the FX9 is part of Sony's cinema line, but both the a7S III and the FX9 are full frame cameras. So the FX9 can record 4K DCI up to 60 frames per second using downsampling from its 6K sensor. The a7S III only does 4K UHD up to 120 frames per second, and it's just a 4K sensor, so there's no downsampling. But that being said, for a cinema camera, the autofocus is really good. It's almost on par with the a7S III, which is a camera that was heralded for its autofocus. So that should tell you something. And on both cameras, the default setting is face priority, which means that when a face moves into the frame, it'll focus on that. And then when it moves around or it leaves, it'll focus on, something in the background. But on the FX9, there's an extra focusing mode called face only. And in this mode, if somebody walks into the frame and then leaves, it'll actually stay on that plane of focus. So the background will stay out of focus. And that just really gives the same sort of idea that you get from a manual focus puller, somebody who doesn't pull to the background immediately as somebody leaves. So I feel like that's a pretty cool cinematic feature that I wish was also on the a7S III. Both of these cameras were recording in S-Log3 using the XAVC-I codec at 25 frames per second. But the FX9 records to MXF containers and the a7S III records to MP4s. The cool thing though is that at UHD 4K 25 frames per second, both of the cameras are recording 250 megabits per second 422 10-bit footage. So that means that they both have the exact same bit depth, and they should be fairly similar from a purely data point of view. I do think that the FX9 has slightly better dynamic range, and you can see the highlight roll-off is a little bit better. Now, these aren't a direct side-to-side comparison, unfortunately, but here's some footage that we shot for the film directly into the sun, and then here's some footage that we shot on the a7S III that was also shot directly into the sun, but it was different conditions a couple of months back. All in all, I definitely think that the a7S III can be used as a B cam for the FX9. Since the FX9 is a cinema camera, it has a ton of buttons on the side of the body. So if you are looking to change a specific setting, chances are there's a button on the side that will save you some time from going through the menus and then changing what you need to change. It is a completely different menu system from the a7S III, and Sony does have a reputation for having bad menu systems. And I do think that the a7S III's menu system is a little bit better, but it's very different from the a7S III menu system, as well as the menu system that was, on a lot of older Sony cameras like the a7 III, which a lot of people complained about. However, if you spend some time with both the cameras, you'll pick it up really quickly and it's not that bad. Personally, I prefer the a7S III menu system, but I've had it the longest, so might be a bit biased. I've also been called biased a lot when I talk about this YouTube channel, because you should definitely smash the like button. Yeah? I like it, but I'm biased, so please smash the like button, please. So when it comes to battery life, the a7S III uses the NP-FZ100 batteries, which with normal use, I usually get around 4 hours of use from one battery. The FX9 natively uses the BPU35 or, all the steps up to the BPU70 batteries. And depending on which battery you use, you get around 2 to 4 hours from that setting at 25 frames per second in 4K. But I didn't test that thoroughly though, because we were using the Anton Bauer gold mount batteries, which are similar to V-mount batteries. But after speaking to some cinematographer friends of mine, a lot of them have said that they prefer the gold mount to the V-mount, because when they're using it on like a shoulder rig, handheld shoulder rig, the V-mount battery sometimes like comes off if it's like on their shoulder. Whereas the Anton Bauer, because it slides onto the side, it doesn't come off the mount as easily. So that's something to keep in mind. But from the gold mount battery, you get around 6 hours of battery life, if not more. It really does supply a lot of juice. So there are no built-in ND filters on the a7S III, but on the FX9, the variable ND is impeccable. It has 2 to 6 stops of variable ND, which you can change all the way in between. It is really cool. And it also has an auto ND mode, which is a really cool thing that I haven't seen on any other camera, which is just awesome. You know what is also pretty awesome? The content on this channel. So subscribe. I really want you to watch our content, browse, watch a bunch of it, and if you like it, hit subscribe. And if you really like it, hit the join button, but we'll get to that later. Both of these cameras have a similar size screen, with the FX9 being a little bit bigger, but the FX9 also has a higher resolution screen at 2.7 million dots. The a7S III only has 1.4 million dots, so that's quite a difference. The FX9 screen also detaches from the camera completely. It's attached by a cable and will mount to the handle, so you can just take it off completely, or you can keep it on. You can substitute it for a 5 or 7 inch monitor. It's really up to you. So that's really cool that it has that versatility. The a7S III obviously also has an HDMI port, which you can do the same thing. But for some reason, when you plug in an HDMI and it's not into an Atomos recorder, it turns off the back screen. So you only have the monitor. So that's interesting. I don't know why that happens, but it's a thing. Both of these cameras use the Sony E-mount, and a really cool thing about that was that I could use the same adapter for PL mount lenses that we used on the FX9 on the a7S III. So it was a really cool experience to put this really heavy piece of glass that actually cost more than the whole camera in front of this tiny little mirrorless body, and then, you know, play around with it. It was really cool. The E-mount is a really cool and versatile mount, because you can just get an adapter and then you can mount like a lot of lenses. Canon lenses, Nikon lenses, PL mount lenses. It's really cool. You can just mount them on there. So I think the E-mount is one of the good ones. I'm a fan. Okay, so which camera do I prefer? The FX9 at 240,000 Rand or the a7S III at 65,000 Rand? You know, this might be a bit controversial, but I prefer the a7S III. The FX9 is a really good camera, but you know, I just think that the differences between them for the things that I'm shooting currently doesn't really justify the cost of the FX9. Now, if we're talking about the FX6, which is 100,000 Rand cheaper than the FX9, I think there's some wiggle room there. I think the next camera that we're going to try is the FX6, because it's super close to our needs and it might be the better camera to upgrade to. So let us know in the comments if you want us to look at the FX6, or if I missed anything on the FX9 that you wanted to know. Please leave it down there. I will look at it. Maybe when I get to shoot with the FX9 again, I will look at that. I'd also just like to say thank you again to Panavision Johannesburg for providing the gear for our short film. They did not sponsor this video or the channel, but you know, it's really cool for a big rental house like Panavision to provide gear to a small indie production and a bunch of aspirational filmmakers. So thank you so much to Panavision, and thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please smash the like button. It really helps us to get this video out in front of more eyeballs, and that's awesome. We really appreciate that if you can do that. And also feel free to browse the channel. We've got over 150, 160 videos on this channel about filmmaking, editing, writing, cameras, podcasts, whatever you want. So please check it out, and if you like what you see, please consider, pressing subscribe, Really appreciate that as well. But until next time, go out there, stay safe, and make your movie.